Welcome to the week 3 quarterback rankings in tier format. We're going to get right into this with tier 1. Here in tier 1, you see these guys. Most of them have rushing upside. The ones that don't have huge touchdown passing potential, lots of yardage. These guys are all locked in studs. We don't have to say a whole lot about them. Josh Allen can get it done on the ground, through the air. Jalen Hurts, big time upside on the ground. We saw multiple rushing touchdowns last week. Lamar Jackson can get it done on the ground and through the air. This tier is just solidified right now, and they have a lot of upside, so lock them in. In tier 2, we have a few more questions. Arizona's offense, Bengals offense hasn't looked like we have wanted it to here in the early going of 2022, but I fully expect them to improve as the season goes on, and there's still some rushing upside with Kyler Murray. We saw that a little bit last week. Derek Carr, new weapons at his disposal. The first half of last week was awesome. And then it's like they turned off the offense in the second half and ended up losing that game. But I expect him to bounce back and be good. Matt Stafford looked better in week 2. Looked off when he wasn't throwing to Cooper Kupp in week 1. But he got some more guys involved in week 2 and looked better. So he moves back into tier 2 with that offense. Kirk Cousins was not good in week 2. But I don't expect that to be the norm. Off week, obviously prime time for him doesn't work out very well, but expect him to be a lot better versus Detroit this week. Down here in tier 3, Russell Wilson kind of in the same boat with Denver, right? They just haven't got that offense clicking. Tom Brady missing a lot of his weapons. Mike Evans going to be out this week. We haven't seen Julio Jones and Chris Godwin practice this week, so they're probably going to be out. If they're even in, they're probably going to be limited. So he doesn't have his full core of options there in the Bucs offense, so he's a little bit down this week. Aaron Rodgers with the tough matchup against Tampa Bay, and obviously he's still trying to figure out his weapons. Was a lot better in week 2 than he was in week 1. Still not in that upper echelon. And then we've got Tua, who would probably be a tier 2 guy on normal weeks, but T has to face Buffalo, and we know that's a tough matchup. And after the big week 2, Baltimore was missing their top 3 cornerbacks, I think, in that game. So not to take anything away from what Tua did in that comeback against the Ravens, but this is not the same thing with Buffalo. They're just really good. And then we've got Justin Fields, who I think finally has a favorable matchup. Houston's defense plays tough, but they're not San Francisco or Green Bay, who I think are both top 5 defenses in the NFL this year. The Bears know they need to pass more, so I've got a better feeling for Fields in week 3 than he has shown with his 28 pass attempts in 2 games over the first 2 weeks. So I'm hoping this is the breakout week for Justin Fields. Marcus Mariota keeps getting it done on the ground. They're a feisty offense. Drake London is stepping up, but he needs to get Kyle Pitts more involved. Good fantasy upside with Mariota and his rushing upside. And if they get that passing game going just a little bit more, this is a guy that could be at the top of this tier or moving into tier 2 going forward for fantasy purposes. A better fantasy option than an NFL option, right? Down here in tier 4, we've seen the old Jameis last week, and we don't want to see more of that. Trevor Lawrence, Davis Mills, they would be a tier higher if they had more rushing upside, a higher rushing floor. But both of them have been pretty decent so far this year. Nothing great, but I do expect them to continue to get better as this season progresses as well. The Bears defense, other than Jalen Johnson, who hasn't been targeted, has been a little rough in the passing game. So Davis Mills is going to have some options. They're going to move Brandon Cooks around, and him and Nico Collins should be able to be productive in this Bears game. Jimmy Garoppolo is back. He comes into tier 4. Obviously, he's not the guy that typically has the huge upside, but he typically has a pretty good floor. He's got good weapons. We'll see if George Kittle can make it back this week. That would be a boost to the San Francisco offense, who's also missing 2 of their top 3 running backs, and they're bringing guys in off the street like Marlon Mack and Tevin Coleman. So we'll have to see how this offense does against Denver, but I do expect Garoppolo to have a pretty good floor throughout this 2022 season. Down here in the bottom, we've got a bunch of guys that don't have a lot of upside on either side of rushing or passing. Some of these guys might have a solid floor, but you're not going to get that 20-25 point week out of most of these guys on most weeks. Geno Smith has looked decent at times this year. Mac Jones is solid, but there's not a lot of passing volume or touchdown potential with this New England offense right now. I don't think. I think they still want to rely on the running game. And other than Jacoby Myers, nobody's really stepped up in the pass game. Other than that, we've got guys here towards the bottom that are really like Mitch Trubisky's in jeopardy of losing this Steelers job if he can't pick it up and get that offense moving. Cooper Rush made his start last week. Wasn't terrible, but wasn't great either. We'll have to see how that plays out as the week stacks out, progress. And then Jacoby Brissett still at the bottom. Not a lot of faith in the passing game in Cleveland. He did get Amari Cooper going in week 2. Hopefully that continues. 3 of their touchdowns were on the ground. Nick Chubb. I think we're going to see a lot of that from Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt as these weeks progress before Deshaun Watson comes in as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. That is the week 3 tight end rankings and tiers. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more videos from Roto Heat. And if you want to watch the wide receivers, you can look here. And if you want to watch the running backs, you can click here. And we will see you next week with the quarterback rankings and tiers for week 4.